Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, we don't have budget.
Call the ordinance committee meeting to order. The first agenda item, final review of all ordinances before sending to codifiers.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't have any questions or concerns with the ordinances. We did get an extension, so I do have to send them off tomorrow, February 26th. I had made a couple of typos, but I corrected those, and so those will be on the second reading of the curfew and the peddler ordinance. There were some other small changes that we made, but I think the biggest change that we're going to be dealing with is that the codifiers recommended that we follow the usual format for ordinances. So this will mean that every ordinance will be renumbered and be in a different chapter now. Now, at the end of it, there is a index, which has a reference to the Montana code, which I think is helpful. And then it has a reference to the prior code. So like if the prior code was 1-1-1, the new code will be 10.01. So they're all numbered, and we have all the information. And like I said, I did go through the entire book several times, and I think Clyde did too. So I just want to make sure if anybody has any issues that we address them before I send out the changes.
I guess the question that I had was on can I look at it and then I can
Sure.
it was the part of the and I asked Frank about it because I felt like after I researched it, it was the part of the suggestions that pertain to federal code,
Oh, yes.
which is the environmental stuff and a lot of the water stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Frank about it because it looked to me like all of that would, be part of his job. Either it's enforcing it or dealing with these different acts in some way. And I was kind of hoping maybe that he would be here today to either say what he was going to say about that.
Well, I know that he had another meeting, so he might be down when he's off of that meeting.
Okay. That was just my question to ask Frank, if all of those federal codes is something that that he is okay with being in there. And I did look at the Billings code book, and they reference the federal code,
Mm-hmm.
but the federal code isn't in there. So I don't know for sure if that's.
And if you read the narrative that they sent about it, and then I did end up calling them to ask for an extension, and she told me that the suggestions are simply what's usually done. So we would be accepting what the usual procedures would be and what is normal in the codes. And
Right.
she said that it makes it easier for people when you have the verbiage in there, and then you don't have to go online or whatever and look up the number, because they were already referenced by numbers in our code. Like you can look this up by, whatever number.
Okay.
They're recommending that we put that in there, which we did talk about this. It's going to make it a little bit longer, even though it's just a little paragraph, but it's in about 30 different things. So it'll add I don't know, I'm guessing at least a dozen pages to our book, but I am hopeful that we can get it sent out without another extension, because it's been kind of a long process. And when I first became mayor, this was something that the public was complaining to us about, that the book had not been updated. that wasn't really accurate because some of these codes were updated as recent as 2021.
Mhm.
I will say it didn't appear that the previous administration updated too many codes, but I know that Jerry did, and that these were looked at on a cycle, which is a requirement that you have to review your codes every so often. And so I do feel that I don't want to say I reacted too quickly to the public's complaints, but I didn't research their complaints a great deal before I went ahead and said we need to update all the ordinances. So, okay, so now we can ask.
Frank, we're doing the final review of the ordinance before sending it to codifiers.
Yeah,
Are you good with what we had talked about?
yeah, well, so I'm okay with all of that because we're always gonna fall. We're always gonna
Right.
be required to follow. So my idea would be to reference the fact that we follow all of that, but not actually put the complete verbiage in, because that verbiage is gonna change from time to time, right? So why waste the money going through all this process, writing down everything that they have in there now, and the next administration or 2 years from now, they change that, we have to go back through and redo all of our ordinances. It doesn't matter if we put it in there or not, we still fall under that. We have to abide by that.
Right.
So I would put a reference in there to it, leave the verbiage out. That way, when they change something, we don't have to go back through and redo our.
Okay.
Do you feel that, because I don't think you were here when we reviewed this, Frank, but do you feel that same way about the Montana codes that they're asking us to include the entire Montana code?
Yeah, I would put a reference in there that, we follow under those rules, whether it's in a book or not. We are required to follow those, nothing changes that. So I would put a reference in there that, yes, we adhere to all policies set forth by.
And that's what we do now. We have the reference to the code in our current code.
Yeah,
And they recommended that we put the code in there so that people don't have to go online and look up and read the code themselves.
yeah, and I guess my idea is this.
Mhm.
Change something because of the verbiage. I would put it in there and let someone go look it up. Changes. None of it makes us exempt from follow. So I would just put a reference to it, that this is what we need to follow and need to.
And I looked up the billings code, and that's what I kind of saw what they did. They would reference it, but they didn't put the whole code in there.
Because every time the state or feds change their stuff, we'd have to change ours and that would
Yeah.
get real expensive.
Just to save money, just be slow. Because regardless of what it says, we like it or not, doesn't matter. We have to follow. And having it in our code book and not having code book is never going to change. So reference it in the code book. They change stuff, whatever they change, the reference is still there. You don't have to go back and change.
Okay, well, that's not a big problem. There's only, under definitions, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there that we would change. And then the, building materials excavation, well, that's floodway management. There's a lot, but, that'd be, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it's only about 12 or 15 things that we originally said yes to, but we can go back and say no if that's what you guys are in agreement with.
But they'll still be referenced.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not like.
right.
It's not- So we're definitely. But start talking about what this stuff. It's.
Yeah.
Restrictions.
And on all the floodplain stuff, the only thing that they're saying is to assist code book users in locating this act, may we suggest including its codified location 42 USC chapter 82. So they're just saying what we already say with our MCA. So those are,
They just want a reference in there.
they do, but with
That
the
would be fine.
MCA, they want to include the code. And I'll just say no on those 5. And then these others where they're just including the number, I'll leave those as yes. Yeah, it's
I mean, it's
location.
the codifier to suggest.
Well, and you know, there are rules for how often we have to look at our ordinances, so no, that's fine. That sounds good. I'll get those fixed and get that sent off. Any other concerns?
Would you just say that one more time? The 5 of the federal code will be left in?
Where it just, let's see if I can make that exactly what they say. We're going to include the codified location.
Okay.
So that will be the USC number or the MCA numbers.
Okay.
We will not include the entire reference, just the numbers to find it. I hope that's clear. And sometimes I worry I don't explain it enough. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Number 2, review ordinance 4-2025.
All right. So everyone has a copy of that. I did visit with the commissioners, and this is regarding combining the Glendive City Court and the Dawson County Justice Court. So the ordinance, you all have it. What I'm asking is to bring it forward to the city council meeting on March 4th. And the commissioners, I believe, are going to bring it forward at their March 4th meeting. So currently, city residents pay for 2 courts. We pay for the JP Court and the Justice Court. County residents only pay for the JP Court. So if they have an issue, they can certainly speak to the commissioners. And if anyone has an issue with what we're doing, they can certainly come and give public comment at our next meeting. It gives them plenty of time. We won't be actually closing the court until the end of the year because Judge Berman still has a year left of her term. And I think she made it pretty clear last year when we looked at this that she was not interested in ending her term early. So does anybody have any questions about it? We don't really have the details exactly hammered out because we have a lot of time, but we felt like we needed to give them plenty of notice. In the information that I got, it said to allow as much time as possible and to expect the consolidation to take approximately 6 months. So there's 31 combined courts in the state out of 56 counties, 31 have a combined court. So over half are combined. So this wasn't something new. A lot of this information I was able to get from the different cities that have combined their courts. So we will have to have an agreement with the commissioners on the cost, and we'll determine that based on a percentage of cases. And then the city's responsible to pay for 1 training for the judge. They have to attend 2 per year. The city has to pay for that. The county has to provide the offices and the courtroom. So it's it's pretty, I don't want to say simple because it's not simple, but there are rules and codes for doing it. And I did cite the codes in the ordinance as well as the resolution. So the codes require that we pass a resolution which goes into effect immediately. But the ordinance will be in effect 30 days after the second reading. So that if it's passed by the council, that will be April 18th. We do want to give them a lot of time because this is a big change. And so we have to move forward with it if we're going to do it this year. And since her term is ending, I think that this is the time to do it. Anyway, we will have an interlocal agreement, which will line out all the costs and that, but I think when I met with the commissioners, we were in favor of getting the ordinance and the resolution done because that is the first step. And then now that we're talking about it, is in a public meeting, I'm not blindsiding you guys by bringing it forward at a council meeting because now people will be aware that this is happening. And if they, if they're a county resident and they're opposed to saving some tax dollars, they can talk to the commissioners. And if they're a city resident and they want to pay for 2 courts, they can come and talk to us at our meeting. But I feel like we really need to look out for our own taxpayers. And when there's a duplication of services like this, where we have 2 courts just a few blocks away from each other, that is probably is another one of those things that we could have looked at before, but I think we're looking at it now. And so we'll bring it forward if you are in favor of it.
I think it's the way that we need to move, and I appreciate all the work that you have done on this and talk to the commissioners, and I appreciate them being willing to work with us too. And
Yeah, me too.
I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for the costs and to move forward at this point.
Okay. Any concerns at all?
Nope.
Well, I know that one of the concerns brought forward before was that we're fairly close to have a population of 5,000 people. And when we reach 5,000, we could become a second-class city. But when I researched this before, I found that the city was actually up to 7,200 people at one point. And they never considered moving to a second-class city. There are some expensive things that you have to do when you're a second-class city that would be hard for us to implement with our budget right now. And of course, we're trying to save money in the budget. We're not trying to make people pay more money. So I do see this as a real savings for our taxpayers and reducing a duplication of services. So that's all I know about that.
So then the resolution, review this resolution, it's
Almost identical to
almost
the ordinance.
identical, but this would take effect before the ordinance.
Right, because when the council passes a resolution, it becomes effective immediately. But ordinance, it's not till 30 days after the second reading of it.
Kevin, did you have something?
Hmm?
Were you gonna say something?
Well, I was just wondering if they had an average count as far as how many cases the judge handles per year. I know we've had a pretty drastic decline in population and everything else, so.
Yes, well, it seems to be an average of 4 to 5 a week. But we do have a camera system now, so I can look at the camera and I can see how many people go to city court, and some days no one goes there. I mean, except for the workers. And then, of course, the judge is gone right now. I mean, she's gone for the day, I should say. But I will try to make an appointment to talk to her before the council meeting, and so that I can give her these ordinances, because I think it's important that I try to have a dialogue with her so that she doesn't feel like she's being ambushed or whatever by us. And like I said, I felt like putting it on this agenda where there's no action, we're not a quorum, we can't make a decision except to bring it forward to the council.
Did our legal counsel look at all this?
Yes, John Rubus did review it, and he said it was fine and that I got all the right MCA codes in there. And like I said, we have 31 combined courts in the state, so there was some information about the ordinance and resolution and how it works and what the county pays and what the city would pay.
Mhm.
So it's all pretty clear.
So this is step one, and then there's a lot more details to come.
There will be. And like I said, it's going to be a bit of a process. They said to allow for at least 6 months, but I felt like we need to let them know as soon as possible that this is happening. And I was hesitant until the commissioners agreed, because it's dependent on them passing it and us passing it. So if something goes awry, or there's a lot of people that say they want to keep paying for it, then, you know, I'm sure that the commissioners and the council will want to listen to what their constituents say. So I'm looking at it from a budgetary point. I think we will save at least half the budget, and the budget is a little over $100,000 for the city court. And it appears to me, by the rough math that I did with how many cases were at the court and how many were at the JP, it appears that the city court has between 15 to 20% of the cases of the Justice of the Peace Court. Now, sometimes it's a little below that, but seemed to be about 17 to 18%. So that is how we'll try to determine what we pay. And then there's some other ancillary charges that we would have to pay. But they already have a full-time judge. They already have a full-time clerk. And the clerk is also certified as a judge. So when Judge Nearson is gone, then Jennifer fills in as the judge. So right now, when Judge Berman is gone, all the cases are sent over to Stacy's court. And I did talk to her last year, and she said she would like to wait until the end of Judge Berman's term, and that she did not feel she would have any problem picking up those few cases a week. So.
Something else? Public comment? Okay, we'll adjourn the ordinance meeting at 4:25.
Mel,